Here's a video on Explain Everything and how I plan on using the 3-act math lesson along with Explain Everything. So the first example I'm going to give is Super Mario's, created by Nora Oswald. The first slide starts in with her Act 1 video. After we see Act 1, we'll go into a sheet that I made called Notice and Wonder. It'll be blank. I'll have the students talk about the things that they see in Act 1 and then the questions that they wonder from Act 1. So a couple of things that I just kind of jotted down was that there were 3 rounds that were played. The first round, Mario scored 100 points. The second round, they scored 4,000 points. 100 points happens close to the bottom of the pole. 4,000 happens close to the top of the pole. The point value jumps drastically, so I could assume that it might be an exponential model. Questions that we wonder: how many points did they score in round 3? What equation could be used to determine any height on the pole? And what type of model is this situation, linear, exponential, or quadratic? Okay, then we're going to go into the next slide, which has Act 2. Now, what I did is it would start off with just the pictures, and then I would add all this stuff. But for me to be able to solve this, I drew a line where all the poles were. So I just came through here and drew this line. Then I went to the internet and got a picture of a ruler and measure and put the ruler. These you have to make sure you duplicate all 3 so they look exactly the same. Then I just did a mark at the top of Mario's head on each little picture. And then I just came up with some estimations, nothing exact, but estimations here. So here we got 1.75 as the height in the first picture, and he scored 100 points. In the second picture I actually have down here 9, and then he scored 4,000 points. And then in the third picture, the one we don't know, it looks like about maybe 4.25, and we're trying to determine the number of points. So I did a quick jot of all this together so that you know the blue line was the lowest number of points and his lowest height, which was at 100 points. The purple one is his middle one. We don't know the points. And the third one is his highest height with 4,000 points. Okay, then I would have a discussion about how we can use these points and come up with an equation and come up with an estimation of where we think Mario's points would have landed him at a specific height. So I'd probably go into using Desmos. So the next slide has Desmos. So what I'll do is I'll go into, bring up the internet, use Desmos, type in a table so that we get our points on the graph. Then do a regression equation. Now I assumed that it was exponential, so I started off with exponential, and we see that that is a perfect model for these 2 points. The last thing that I used in Desmos was to calculate the third height of Mario so that we could figure out what his points would be. So on our ruler in the slide before that, we determined that 4.25 was approximately where he landed. So I used the X value to create a vertical line and determine that this point right here would be where he would have landed, and he would have scored 356 points. Okay, so I would use Desmos definitely to solve that. Then I would go into the next slide and here would be the answer in Act 3. So if you notice, the actual program gives Mario landing at that height, giving him 400 points. So the next thing that I go into is another that I created, so that we talk about what the actual video shows and what the mathematics calculated. So if you notice, remember that 400 was what the video showed, but Desmos got us a 356.8 points where our model landed at. Then I want to make sure that we go into, if the answers are different, why might they be different? I remember looking at the screenshot of the 3 different images, and I noticed that the third one was slightly a little bit smaller. So the scale is slightly off compared to the others, which would result in the calculations being different than the actual points. Also, we picked our own ruler, so depending on the measurements there, that might affect the calculations as well. So this would be something that I would definitely discuss with the kids. But overall, the 3 acts, the first one is going to get them hooked. The second one will be, you'll ask them before the second act, you'll ask them questions. What did they notice? What did they wonder? What information would they need to be able to solve the problems? Then Act 2, you're going to give them the information. And then after we do the calculation, then in Act 3, you will give them the answer to kind of sum it all up. So that's pretty much how I'm going to use, I plan on using Explain Everything to video the lessons and incorporate all the different parts, and to hopefully be able to record it and put it on the internet so that the students can look back over later. Thanks, and hopefully this is helpful.